Good morning, everyone, and thank you for taking the time to join today's webinar, Top New Features for Dynamics 365 Sales Enterprise, brought to you by Cargis. Today on the call with me today, I have our CRM team leader, Mimi Whiteside, and systems consultants, Dave Packard and Joe Campagna. I also have account manager, Tim Krauser, on the call. During this presentation, we encourage you to use the questions pane, which is located on your webinar control panel, to post questions that you have for our presenters during the webinar. These questions will be reviewed and answered at the end of today's presentation. Additionally, today's webinar will be recorded and posted on our Cargis YouTube channel. Look for that recording to be up shortly. And that's all I have to get us kicked off today. I am going to start by passing things over to Mimi to get started with the webinar. Thank you.
Good morning. Well, it's wonderful to be here today. Look forward to this presentation with all of you. Hopefully you're hearing me come through all right, and we'll get started. So to kick us off, I'm going to talk through the agenda. We are going to help you understand the transition from the Dynamics 365, what we call the classic interface, to the newly minted unified interface, and with that, talking through different strategies to approach that with your organization, some of the gotchas that we've seen, things to be aware of, and then we'll be jumping into a demo of the unified interface and some of the things that we are particularly excited about. We will also be talking about some new features available with the 2020 Wave 1 release. So assuming that you are on the cloud subscription model, these features may be available to you now, and if not now, shortly to come. So that is our plan for this morning. All right, so what are we talking about here with the classic interface to the unified interface? So what is it? Let's start there. So the unified interface is, it's the new front end to the Dynamics experience. It's using a responsive web design. So in other words, regardless of the device that you're using, if it's on your laptop as you normally would use that, on your phone, on a tablet, it's going to pick the best experience based on that device that you're using. So the best viewing experience possible, depending on how you're using it. The best feedback that we've heard from our internal team, as well as our customers that have already made this transition, is the improved performance, and in particular, the increased user efficiency. I know recently when I did a presentation of the new unified interface, I got the immediate response of, wow, this is so much cleaner. I really, really like what Microsoft has done with the layout. So I think you'll be excited as well. Okay, so that's the what. Let's talk a little bit about the why. So the why is that Microsoft announced towards the end of last year that they would be deprecating the classic interface that we've all been accustomed to, and moving to the unified interface as of October 1st of this year. Now we have seen updates where this has been pushed back to all of the things that we've been dealing with in the world. So the new date is December 1st, but we would encourage, if you haven't considered this transition, that you start thinking about it right away, and certainly don't wait until we approach the fall to start making plans. So some of the key frequently asked questions that we've had from customers are, how long will this transition take? Unfortunately, there's not an easy answer to that, because it really depends on the environment that you have deployed, how many customizations that you have in place, how many different users and what are their roles. Those are all relevant questions to how we will approach the project moving forward. So I would say it can take anywhere from just a few days to make those decisions and adjustments to a couple of weeks if you're looking at making some, other improvements to processes and changing, custom code, things like that. So it's really a wide range to that answer. The second frequently asked question is, will I have any downtime? So the answer to that is no, because fortunately, as you're making this transition before that drop dead date of 12/1, you do have access to the old interface plus the new interface. So that's the good news. You don't have to, schedule this to occur over a weekend and plan for, migrating data or anything like that. It's really just a new front end that the users will be, pointing to this new interface. So no downtime should be expected. And then the final question here is retraining required. So that, again, really comes down to how you're approaching the project. Are you looking at this as a pause point to interact with your team to figure out how to best use the system? And based on that, maybe there are other adjustments than just forms. Maybe you're adding new fields or cleaning up screens. So if that is the case, there may be some more intensive retraining required. But back to my prior slide, the feedback that we're getting from customers is that this is a very welcome change. It's a lot easier to navigate. And so from that standpoint, the training is pretty fluid, but yes, it is, subject for discussion for each environment. So that is the why we're talking about this and why your organization needs to, if you haven't put a plan in place, that you do that soon. And then the last section of this slide here is how. So Microsoft has created a unified interface transition portal. I have the link here, which you will have access to. And you'll be getting emails directly from Microsoft, which will link you to this as well. But what that portal allows you to do as either the global admin or the Dynamics 365 admin is to go out, review your target dates for when Microsoft intends to, roll out this change for your environment. You can make adjustments to that, and no updates will be pushed out from Microsoft until they are approved by you, up until 12/1, which is that drop dead date when the support for the classic interface goes away. So you have some flexibility there as to the date that you choose. But step one is to go out and look at what date is set for your organization. So some things to check before the transition. On the technical side, certainly if you have any ISVs installed in your solution, you want to make sure that they have a compatible release for the unified interface. Most of them do at this point. They've been well aware of the upcoming dates for this adjustment. So should be in place, and if not, pretty soon. The second thing is that Microsoft released a Power Apps Solution Checker, which is a technical tool that runs through things like plugins, custom code if you have JavaScript on your forms, and it will flag those things and give you a report of things that need to be adjusted. So that's a very handy tool that you can see very quickly, what the gaps are, what features have to be replaced, what things are going away, so that you can deal with that before you're moving to this new interface. Cargis obviously is available for technical support, from just handling any code issues that are identified through that Power Apps Solution Checker to managing the full transition project. There have been a couple cases with customers where, like I said, they're looking to engage their teams further. And so, we're helping to go through a retraining process and really help to, just re-engage the team. And so we're project managing that, kind of adding those consulting services. There's a wide range of things that we can do to help support you through that process. On the application side, some recommendations. I don't know if you noticed on the previous slide, but in the Unified Interface portal, you can actually implement the change or approve that for Sandbox first and independent of your production environment. We are recommending that, especially if you have custom code that you are aware of on your forms, plugins that are running within your organization. So, run that within the Sandbox first, do some testing, see what problems are there so you can plan ahead. Secondly, now is the opportunity to look into defining your apps. So part of the reason that Microsoft went to this unified interface is that you can roll out multiple different applications based on each role within your organization. Not all companies are choosing to do that. In fact, most are looking at a single app deployed in a flexible way, but managing through security and forms as we have done traditionally. But Microsoft does give us the flexibility to add multiple different apps. For example, if you wanted for the sales experience with this unified interface to be different than your customer service representatives, they can have two distinct applications looking at the same database, of course, but just a different UI or user experience on the front end. So now is the time to define how you would like to roll that out, and then re-engage your teams for application cleanup. Are we using all the fields on the forms? Are we satisfied with the different values that we have in existing fields? Things like that. Followed up by user acceptance training within Sandbox, and then ultimately getting that deployed into production and training your end users on the new experience. So that's kind of a quick run through. Microsoft has a checklist for the unified interface as well. But Cargill, having gone through this with many customers to this point, these are some of the highlights that we've pulled out for things that you should be aware of. So I'm going to pass the presenter rights over to my colleague, Dave Packard, and he's going to be going through a demonstration.
All right, thanks, Mimi. Let me just get my screen here and get that set up. Hold on a second. Okay, hopefully you can see my screen. I don't know if anyone can confirm that quick. All right, thank you. So right now we're looking at just in a Sandbox demo environment. So what I'm going to do for my agenda for the demo is I want to walk you through the new unified interface, obviously is what we're talking about. So I want to show you how that looks in the web browser, as well as a mobile app, and then also touch on the Outlook app as well, because I don't know if some people may still be using the old Outlook client. That is being deprecated by Microsoft. It's not done yet, but it is going to be going away, and they have replaced it with the new Dynamics Outlook app, and I'll touch on that as well. So to start with web browser, most users are typically doing this from a laptop or desktop, so I thought it'd be easiest to start here. I'm just going to do a basic sales overview demo, just kind of walking through how everything works. So when you first take a look at it, if no one has looked at it yet, the navigation has changed. You still have that same navigation bar across the top, but they've removed some pieces, also running down the left-hand side here too. So to start with, in the top left, I'll just go left to right and work our way down. You have the app launch. If you click on that, and I'm not going to dig into this, but this gives you access to your other applications. If you have Office 365, other pieces of Dynamics 365, if you're an admin, you can get to the different other areas of the entire Office suite. So that's kind of the waffle area, and I'm just going to skip over that for now. The logo here is if we put our logo in here, if we did your implementation, we probably have your logo in there as well. This is just your home page. You click on that, whatever is set to your home page as that user is what you're going to see when you click on that. If you don't have your logo there, I'd probably just say Dynamics 365. The little drop down arrow here is to switch to another app within Dynamics. As you can see here in my other apps, I have the Sales app, Sales Hub, Sales Team Member, Customer Service Hub. Right now, I am on the Sales Hub. So you can actually tell that if I go to the right here, you can see this little breadcrumb trail. This is still here. It was in the old version, the classic interface, but it's still here too. So it tells me which app I'm in and then what area I'm in. Right now I'm in sales, and right now I'm looking at dashboards. So this always tells you where you are, because some users, the nice thing about the new UI is you can have flexibility in different apps. So a user could have multiple apps. We usually recommend trying to keep it simple to start with, give everyone an app, or depending on role. So maybe sales would have a sales app, customer service could have a customer service app, and so on and so forth. You could have different apps based on their different needs and roles and what they need to see in the system or not. So you can simplify the system based on what they need to do, which is different compared to the old interface. If you look at it here, we had all the drop downs from here, and it was hard to kind of limit what people could see within these different areas here. So I'll kind of walk you through how that goes there. So that's kind of the breadcrumb trail. If I click on something different, you can see the breadcrumb trail will change. I'm now still on the Sales Hub app, sales, and then looking at activities right now. So let me just go back to home. So if I just jump across here, this is unified or universal search. It works. This is not exactly new. It's the same kind of thing you've seen before. It's looking across multiple record types. I'm just using the word test because this is a test demo environment, lots of test data in here. So it's looking across accounts, contacts, and opportunities is what it found so far. You can change the filter, of course. This is all the different record types. This is, of course, customizable, so you can change that as well. And just like every search with Microsoft, you can also use the wildcard, which is the asterisk symbol. So that gives you a few more things wherever the word test appears somewhere in the names that it's looking at and the fields it's looking at as well. So that's universal search. It's the fastest way to try to find different records across the entire system. So to the right of that, we have task flow. This one is just doing, think of this as kind of like canned tasks that you want to happen. So basically it's like a canned workflow that users can activate, and it'll do certain things. An example would be the task flow would be easier sometimes like a mobile device. If you're on your phone, you want to quickly just run an update or something like that. So you can add a call as needed or something along those lines. You can use a task flow. You'd have to set that up in the background, and then that the front end users can use that kind of flow. If it's just a repetitive task to do over and again, they can call it at any point in time. So that's what those are. To the right of that is the assistant. So if you click on that, it kind of gives you reminders, notifications based on data that's in the system. This one's telling me I have an opportunity closing soon. Obviously, this is a demo environment, so there's not a lot of data in there. But normal in a system, you'd see a lot of other things in here, such as upcoming activities that are due, other opportunities that I have going on would be showing up here in the assistant. So it's kind of giving the end user, trying to give them a little bit of help to look across the entire system for them and say, here's your reminders of different things that are coming up based on due dates we know in the system. To the right is still the quick create. You can quick create different record types. So if I just click on here, a lead record, for example. So you see here, you can just quickly punch in a lead. It's one of the easiest ones to do. Just enter the different information, the required fields, but you probably notice here this new button. This is only available in the unified interface. It's a scan a business card. This obviously works very well on a phone or something like that, a mobile device where you can literally take a picture of a business card and it pulls in the information. If I click on it here on my laptop, what it'll do is ask me to say load a picture. So if I had a picture of it already on my desktop, then I'd be able to pull that in right there as well. So I can quickly enter the quick create of a lead and enter that in the system. I'm not going to walk through the entire form right now, but that's what that is. Next to that is still advanced find. That's still available in the system. It's on every single page, just like it has been. So you can just do obviously quick searches. I know some people are very familiar with this, maybe others are not as much. So let me just kind of go here and say contact. So if you're also not familiar with this, let me just do a quick contact search. I'll just say last name contains data, for example. So it pulled up 76 different users in this system. So that's not exactly new, especially those who are familiar with advanced find. But the other thing, if you're not familiar with it, this isn't the newest feature of the new UI, but it is something they just added recently. You can now do searches against records that don't exist. So and SQL terms like a left outer join, if you're familiar with that. You can start doing a little bit of that. They haven't added a lot yet. So let me see here if I have some activities, maybe those that don't have an email, any email messages. So I'm looking for contacts where they have a last name and their email message. I'm going to change this now to does not contains data. So basically this is telling me, give me all the contacts that have a last name and do not have any email messages regarding those. So you could change this and say any contacts that don't have any opportunities or don't have any cases, something like that, and hit results. So this one, because this is demo data, it's returning the same set. I don't have any other emails in there. But the one thing you want to notice too, so this is a nice feature. The only thing is that it is universal right now. So it's basically that have never ever had an email message regarding them. Or if you change this and said an opportunity, it would be that have never had an opportunity associated with them. I can't add additional conditions down here yet, but this is a new feature. So just want to give you a heads up on that if you're not familiar with that. So continuing on, I'll leave that. Going to the cogwheel here. We have the personalization settings. This is something we usually set up the system. We ask users to do this. Set the records per page, the default pane. This is your home page. You can change this to sales in the sales app, and then I'm going to dashboards. I can change that to go to accounts if I want to. Always set your time zone, and I always like to go to a detailed on the advanced find there. You can set your currency if you're using multi-currency. I'll just go ahead and hit OK. Changing what my home page is, and again, that's back here. If I click on home page, that's where it's going to take me. So now it takes me to sales and to accounts because I just changed that on my home page. You have the little help icon here as well. I'm not going to cover that because it's just Microsoft Help. You can kind of do searches on how to find things in CRM. And then, of course, your log in and log out kind of thing here as well. All right, another thing for system admins to know is that the settings area is through here now. So you go to the cogwheel and then go to advanced settings. So anyone who's a system admin and you want to go there now, that's how you get to the back end of the system to do form changes, field changes, that kind of stuff. Now you're back into the settings area, which probably looks familiar. You can go to the customizations, et cetera, et cetera. So that's in a slightly different location. It's now under the cogwheel when you log in, and it'll just open it up in another tab. So that's the navigation across the top. Going down the left-hand side, we have here obviously the home page. We have the recent. So that says move. This used to be up top. It's now down here. You can see recent views I've looked at or recent records I've looked at. If I'm working with this one, for example, this contact here, I can pin that down just like I could on the other system. And then that shows up here under my pinned list of records that I have pinned down. So it's a nice, easy reference, kind of like bookmarking a page for a website. In your browser, it's doing the same kind of thing within CRM. Going down here, I have my dashboards. Works just like it has in the past. One nice thing though is that Microsoft has started expanding the number of pieces you can have in a dashboard as well. Some of it depends on like the size of like how many users and licenses you have. It used to be just 6 components, but now you can sometimes have more depending on how many users you have. It's kind of a bit of a sliding scale there. Go through activities. There's now this auto capture feature, which we're going to cover later. I'm not going to touch on that now. Go to customers. So this whole navigation area now is just a little bit easier. This is always kind of standing out. So you have accounts. You can get to the different sections here, the contacts, leads, and this is completely customizable because you can see here, this one is specifically for sales. So it's focused around accounts, contacts, leads, and opportunities. You also have in here the other sales components if you're using those. Not everybody does. We have the competitors, quotes, orders, invoices, products, sales literature, marketing lists, and then of course goals and forecasts. And then you can also see cases within sales. Sales always has the option to be able to see cases, but just not to create cases. And if you need to, sometimes you can have apps that are a little bit larger, so you can navigate to other different sections or different areas. So you can go to app settings, sales insight settings, and help and support. Right here, I'm just going to stay under sales, but there are different areas you can get to as well, depending on how large the app needs to be, what you need to show. If you had any custom entities, you could add those in here as well. So you could put those under any of these different headings. And there's a way to do that when you build the apps as well. And as I said, you can have the apps specific for different roles. So when you first log into the system, they are now going to be directed, users are going to be directed to a specific app that you have set up. If not, you can use one of the ones that Microsoft has out of the box, such as Sales Hub. Just note that it will not have any of your custom entities. You will have to add that to the navigation here on the left-hand side. So it's a little bit more set up there, but the nice thing is it also streamlines a lot of the navigation. Instead of having this old format where you kind of had everything under the sun, you can now be a little bit more strategic in what you show for end users. Like I said, if it's customer service or sales or inside sales management, they can all have different apps potentially if you want them to. So that's kind of walking through the navigation. You can also, if you want to, click on the little hamburger icon that kind of collapses the left-hand navigation, gives you a little bit more real estate to work with, especially if you have views that you're using that have a lot of different columns. You'll be able to go through that as well. So homepage, recent lists. All right, so let me just look at my list. So if I go to expand this again, go to accounts, we do of course have the standard, if you haven't used this before, different views in the system. You have system views. Microsoft did flip this. Actually, they used to be the system views are up top. Now the personal views are at the top. So you can see here I have different personal views within the system here. I have a few that are in Denver, maybe just in Pennsylvania, so I can get to the different places, different views within the accounts quickly and easily. So that's just changing the view. The charts are still available. You have a little chart button here. So if you want to see a different chart, for example, just click on that and it shows it. And then you can click on here, show accounts by owner, for example, whatever the different one is, customers by division. So you can see different breakdowns based on the charts in the system. Then you can just close that when you don't need the chart anymore. The buttons are still here for the most part across the top. And you do have now as well a feature about there are some dashboards in here too specific to the different entities. I'll just kind of click on this quickly. So you can kind of see a view here of the different accounts based on the dashboard. So you can switch those around to tile views as well, or just kind of the header views to see different things as well. So let me go back to my main view here on accounts. So that's kind of the general navigation. Let me just go down to opportunities here as well. Okay, so we're on what the tile view here. So you can just drill into the opportunities. You can obviously filter these down too. There's also the chart area here as well. Sometimes this one is used a little bit more, especially like the sales pipeline kind of thing. So that's kind of where the charts are and everything. Another thing I want to show that has recently changed as well and is in the new UI, this has come up before and I've done training, is you have, of course, the universal search across the top. But down here within the different views, like in accounts, if I go to contacts, it's there as well. You have search within the different entities. So if you go on the different lower level here, you have this specific one. This used to be a search across all the different record types that were active, typically was the default. Microsoft has now changed this to now you can search just this particular view. So if I change this view to something else, let's see here, if I go to like inactive accounts, which you didn't used to be able to do, of course, this demo environment doesn't have any. Let me go to active accounts. So if I want to do the search here, let me go actually to state of PA. There we go. So if I want to do a search here for test, for example, it's only going to show me those within this actual view. So I'm still within this view, which is a new feature for Microsoft. They've now kind of fixed this. This has been something people have requested a lot. So when you're doing the search at this level, it's only going to look for records within the view you're on. So now you could even do a search for inactive accounts or inactive vectors. Sometimes it comes up. You used to always have to use advanced find for that. Now you can actually do a search directly within here, within a different view, and it is specific to the view that you're on. So if I try to do another search here on this Millersville accounts, I don't get anything because none of those accounts had the word test in or did not start with the word test. So it is very specific now to the view you are on. This can be turned off by default. Now Microsoft is turning this on, so it's only searching the view that you are on. So for users who are used to that search, looking for all records, regardless of what view you're on, that is going to be a bit of a change for the end users. And that is a setting on the back end. We could show you how to do that then. But that is something that is a new change for the system. So let me go ahead and open up an account here, just kind of show how the form now looks different as well. This is kind of the navigation and everything. And then when you open up an actual form, you still have your header fields up top. You can still only have really 4 fields that you can edit, see who the owner is. If you have that little drop down, you can make changes here, add information as needed. You have the different sections here, same as before, but they have made this a little bit more streamlined. So you do want to be, when you're building forms and even looking to transition to the new UI, if you have different tabs with a lot of information on them, there's a lot of scrolling, you might want to take a look at that. Even like this one here, we should probably move the map over so you don't have to scroll down so far, maybe put it underneath here. Just kind of consolidate things because it is now, as Mimi mentioned in her introduction, this is going to be more universal across different devices. So it's trying to be more universal. So They're trying to limit how much scrolling needs to be, because when you're on a phone or a tablet, it's not as much fun to keep scrolling through things. So they are breaking things up now into tabs. So if I click on the Cargus Energy tab here, I see all the sections and fields that go with this particular piece of the account information. So I can scroll through here and see different pieces of information, go to the details tab, and you can break up the tabs however you need to. This one's showing more of the description, contact preferences. Then you can go through here as well, get to the different files. If there's anything, obviously using SharePoint on the back end, you'd be able to see any attached files. And then of course, related records across here as well. You can see all the different other records related to this if they are not on a actual subgrid within the system itself. So if you want to jump back to accounts, you can do that. So that's kind of the new form on that side of things. You do want to just be aware of that, just because the tabs now go across the top instead of just continuously scrolling like the old view. The old classic interface used to just be an never-ending scrolling section. Now you actually click across the tabs. That does help with loading of pages too, we found, just because it's only loading that first tab. So whatever in the first tab is what it's going to load. So it is loading a little bit faster now as well. Let me go down to opportunities and open up an opportunity, because this looks a little bit different as well. Same with the leads. Let me go ahead and open one up. Okay, so the form here, the tabs look the same, but now you can see I have the sales process here. So this is, they've streamlined this as well, made it a little bit smaller, so not taking as much real estate as it had on the old interface. But you can see here's the opportunity sales process. I've already completed the qualify step here, and where the target is, you can see I'm now in the develop stage, and I've been there for 82 days. If I click on that, I can see the different fields within the develop stage, and as you probably, most of you know, that this is customizable, so you can change what's there. And then just move it forward. I just click next stage. I can go through and mark off what needs to be completed, if anything, and click next stage, and that'll move it to the proposed stage then, see it moving forward there. So that is a change, and then if I don't want to see that, I just click off of that. But if I want to see those specific fields needed for that stage, I just click on that. And then the rest of the functionality is basically the same, but the processes, sales process, case processes, any processes you have in place are going to run this more streamlined ribbon here across the top. And that's just how you work on it. You just click on the different stages and you can see the different fields. You can even look ahead and see what the next fields are you're going to be filling in for those different stages. Okay, so that's kind of a brief overview of kind of the navigation within the web browser. I want to show you quickly next is actually the mobile app. So I have a few minutes here. Let me just jump over to the mobile app. This is on my laptop here, so I'm looking more of like a tablet kind of view. Obviously, if you have a phone, it's gonna be a much more streamlined view. It would be probably something more like you'd only see one section at a time, something like that as a piece is what you would see going there. But navigation here, instead of being on the top and left-hand side, it's across the bottom. So I have the little hamburger here. I click on that. I can jump to my other areas of CRM. So if I want to go to accounts, for example, if I click this little arrow next to it, it shows me the last 3 accounts I've been looking at. So if those ones I want to jump back to, I can do that. I can click there and go directly to that account record. And then the form will look basically the same as it does in the web browser. It just doesn't obviously have the URL up top or anything, but the rest of the form is here. So it's being consistent across all the different devices. I can go to the Cargus Energy tab, just like we saw on the web browser, the details tab, etc. Still have a home page here, so users can set that up for themselves within the app itself. And the app here, the navigation here is the same here as it is on the phones too. So if you have iOS or Android and you have the Microsoft Dynamics app installed, it's there. Searching, same functionality there as we saw before. And then we also have the assistants and things like that here too. And then if you need to sign out, you can sign out here. So that's kind of the general navigation. You also have the recent and pinned things here too, if you need to get to those, because you're seeing they're not showing up here. But if you use the recent and pinned areas, it's down here in this little icon down here. You can see my favorites that I've already pinned down or things that I've recently used. Let's go to all activities, for example. But then the rest of the functionality is the same as we saw in the web browser. So it's looking about basically the same across the entire platform, no matter which device I'm on. And like I said, the only difference would be the phones would be a little bit smaller. So I have about 1 more minute. So that's mobile app. Let me show the Outlook app. So I know a lot of people love the fact that obviously Microsoft plays well with the rest of the Office suite. One of them, of course, being Outlook. So what we do have is you can now track directly from Outlook, just like the old Outlook client. If you're using the old Outlook client, you're going to need to uninstall that and install the new one. But this is a much more lightweight app. You can actually do it from the back end and push it out to users if you want to, or you can have them choose what they want to do with it if they get it. So what I've done here is just send myself an email from my Gmail account. And what I want to do, if I want to track this one, I still recommend only tracking the things that you need and don't do the universal tracking of things. So all I need to do is just click on the Dynamics 365 button up here. Little window will pop up here. It's going to authenticate. Sometimes the first time you do it, it might take a little bit because it's authenticating. But then you can see here, this looks familiar to what we're seeing in the apps themselves, obviously a much more condensed version. And then I can select here what I want to track it to. This one's track pending because it found that this email address already exists in the system as a contact. I already have a contact in our system that's there, so I can say go ahead and track it to this one, set regarding, or I could change it and track it to something else. If I want to select a different record, like maybe this is more specific instead of to a contact, it should be for an opportunity, I can change it and send it there, or I can send it to any other record that I want to, but I can pretty granularly track to whatever I want to. But it does try to think for me and tell me, hey, we found this email address in your system, it's this contact, and if I want to track it to this one, I'll just say set regarding, and then it'll process that and then track it to that particular contact in the system. So nice and easy. It does try to do some matching for me on the fly. The other things you can do too, you can, same thing as in the Outlook client, you can track appointments. So if same functionality here, if you open up the sample tracking appointment, just click the Dynamics 365 button and walk through the exact same process. What do I want to track this to? A lead, an account, contact, appointment, or opportunity, I should say. I just have to specify what it is, and then it goes through that whole functionality there. You can also promote contacts if you have contacts in Outlook up to CRM as well. That's another piece of the functionality. But I am running a little bit over time here, so I just want to kind of make sure I showed everything there. So that's kind of the web browser, the mobile app, and the Outlook app. And at this time, I will transition this back to, or over to Joe, I should say.
Thanks, Dave. All right, just want to confirm that everybody can hear me and see my screen.
I can hear you, Joe, and I am seeing your screen.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, everybody. Hi, my name is Joe Compagna, as mentioned before, and I'm just going to go through just a quick overview of what I'm going to cover here. Dave kind of previewed a little bit of it, but I'm going to be focusing on some of the new exciting Wave 1 2020 updates that are available to you right now through the unified interface. I'll be covering the auto capture feature as well as the new relationship assistant features. I'll be going over Kanban views and then the new activity management. And then I'll be handing it back over to Mimi to cover the other side of the features. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is what Dave actually mentioned briefly through his demo is there's some changes that were made to the relationship assistant itself. So most of you have probably heard of the Sales Insights Assistant in D365 Sales, also known as the relationship assistant. The assistant displays action cards, what they call them, throughout D365 with information about data in D365 as well as data in Exchange. The action cards give the sales user several different types of insights. For example, a reminder about an upcoming meeting or a warning about an opportunity that hasn't been worked on in a while. But in the 2020 release Wave 1, the assistant got a bit of a facelift, and in our opinion, it looks pretty good. So you'll notice that the previous version is over here on the left, and the new version is on the right. One thing they did is the relationship assistant is actually now called the D365 assistant, but at least that's what it was referred to in the Microsoft documentation. The assistant has a new updated user interface, obviously with a brand new look and feel. This new layout shows the content of the card better, and users can actually take action directly from within the card itself without having to navigate away. So the cards will also be shown grouped by type, so they'll be easier to find. For example, cards that show tasks or meetings that are due today will be shown in the notification section, while predictive cards will be filed under Insights. So users will ultimately have the ability to drill down to the details of a card if they need to. So Microsoft is definitely putting a lot of R&D into this relationship assistant to kind of help the end user navigate through their day a little bit better. And as Dave showed in the mobile demo, you can access this same relationship assistant through the mobile app as well. Okay, I'm going to go over basically just some enhancements on the auto capture feature in CRM. And the auto capture feature resides mainly on your timeline on any of your main forms, but I wanted to just kind of walk through a quick video since we don't have our email addresses hooked up to our sandbox, but just walk through a quick video of some of the enhancements through that auto capture feature itself. So let me just full screen this real quick. So if you'll notice looking at this timeline here in the middle of the form, it's getting circled right now. You'll see that activity suggestions box up top, right on top of your main timeline. So the auto capture feature used to just look at emails that were coming into your inbox and suggest emails that you might want to attach to this record in CRM. But now it's looking at appointments, meetings, and also a new feature, it's looking at contacts that it might suggest that you would want to add into CRM with all the contact data coming in, right? So it's really easy to kind of grab information from Exchange. We notice we have an appointment here. We're going to go ahead and just save that appointment that we logged over on the Outlook side as an activity in CRM. We do have editing features as well, right? So let's say, you know, it brought over most of the right information, but we need to change some information around. We can also do that. Dave touched on this a little bit, but you have your activity suggestions and contact suggestions view. So what Microsoft is doing is they're actually pre-populating views that you can look at of just rolling lists of activities and contacts that you can just easily add into CRM that they're pulling from your Outlook inbox, right? So you'll notice here, it's just very easy to pick an item on the list, save that as an activity, and just keep rolling on with your day. Now, the contact list is a little more complex. If you're noticing here, you can sort the contact list. Say you're looking for somebody named Kevin. You can go ahead and just set that, you know, it ends with Kevin, and then you want to see all the Kevins that come up in the system. Let's say we want Kevin Gates here, and then we easily save Kevin as a contact in the system, and it brings over all the information from Kevin that we can create as a contact under an account. So this feature is really you know, easy and kind of easy to implement. And then if you notice here, it brings in all the information that it sees from the actual email or the contact over on the Outlook side to kind of cut down on typing in this person inside CRM itself. So those are some interesting features that Microsoft is adding to kind of make the end user experience a lot easier in CRM. Okay, I'm going to hop over to the system real quick and talk really quick about some timeline enhancements that were made. So if you notice, when I'm talking about the timeline, I'm talking about the box in the middle of the screen here. And Microsoft is just making it easier kind of to navigate what exactly is in the timeline itself. First thing I noticed though is I'm sure a lot of people enter notes on the timeline. Microsoft has given you a whole new interface to enter notes. So right, if I enter just a basic note here, you used to just be able to enter notes like this. Well, now you have some different formatting options. For the notes themselves, you can change the color, you can add highlighting, you can do whatever you want, but you have a whole menu of different options on how to actually enter the note into the system to kind of make that a more enhanced experience for you. So you'll notice that this bar will pop up at the bottom of the screen for you every time you go to enter a note in the system from here on out, and then you can kind of go crazy with the formatting options from there. Another enhancement here that I really noticed that I really like is it's kind of helping you kind of navigate through filtering what's exactly in your timeline. You'll notice that you have these little color-coded status symbols on these activities, right? So we notice that we have some active ones, but more importantly, my favorite one is they're showing you activities that are overdue or canceled or so on and so forth, right? So they're giving you these nice labels on these activities now to kind of help you navigate through this rolling list. Another feature, new feature that I really like is you can now actually search the timeline. This is really helpful if you're trying to find maybe an email or a group of emails or maybe even a you know, a contact that you're looking for in the timeline. Let's say I want to look for an email that I sent out about products to somebody, right? Well, there we go. I have an email that I sent, well, actually Mimi sent, to talk about product lines that was sent on, yesterday at 4:53 p.m. So just by typing product in there, I was able to find an email that found that keyword. So this new, let's call it the universal search in the timeline, is a really useful feature that you can use in the 2020 Wave 1 release. Another one of my favorite features, and Dave kind of browsed over these as well, is Kanban views, and that's what they call them. It's kind of a weird name, but this is what it is. A Kanban view is an inline editing type view that really enhances entities such as the opportunity. So you'll notice I'm looking at the Kanban view for the business process flow, okay? So you'll notice they're grouping the opportunities in the different stages that these opportunities are in the actual business process, right? So we notice we have a lot of opportunities in the qualify stage. We have one in develop, one in propose, and none in close. So this is a great view as kind of like a pipeline view of what's going on in your system right now. You can inline edit these opportunities right from these Kanban views. We can add an estimated close date. These are saving on the fly, and you'll notice there's roll-up numbers at the top to show you what type of pipeline you're looking at in each one of these stages, which is a really useful feature, right? We have 124K in qualify right now, we have 25K in develop, and we have 12K in propose. Another cool feature is, let's say I know that this opportunity test up here needs to be moved from qualify to develop. So I can just go ahead and grab this guy, drag him over to the develop stage. It's going to automatically open up the opportunity. And if there was any information that I needed to fill out on that qualify stage before moving over to develop, I can just go ahead and do that right here. And then I can just move on to the next stage, right? So it's a really easy way of managing your opportunities, not having to drill into each opportunity itself. And then we have this pop-out view of the opportunity as well, so it's not taking up the whole screen. So these Kanban views are going to be really helpful in helping end users and managers and everybody using CRM kind of manage their pipeline, especially this business process flow view. And I can even change it to a status view, right? Let's say you just want to see your opportunities, your open opportunities kind of by status. Well, we have a lot of opportunities in the open category right now, and maybe we want to push some over to one, and I guess it's good that we have none in loss. But this, once again, is a nice way to kind of see how our pipeline is delineated out through these Kanban views. Let's say this isn't your favorite way to view the system, that's fine. You can go ahead over here, click Show As, and then you can switch back over to the view that we're kind of used to seeing it in the list, but simply just go back over to Show As, click that Kanban view again, and you have that Kanban list from before. And we can do this on multiple entities, right? So this is a really helpful way to do activities as well, right? So you'll see I have an all activities view, and now I can see, okay, here's all my activities I have in the open, 10 out of 98, completed, canceled, and scheduled. And you still have the same capabilities here to inline edit these activities through these Kanban views, right? So this is a really nice enhancement that they've added in through the 2020 Wave 1 release. Okay, speaking about activities, so they've added some new filtering capabilities to our activities. I'm going to go back to this read-only grid here to show you that. These are some features that the end user base was really asking for from Microsoft, since activities is one of the most heavily used areas in CRM. You can now filter by activity type. This might not seem like a big change, but for those of you on the call today that really heavily use activities, this is really helpful, right? So I can filter by activity type, and now I just want to see my phone calls. Maybe I just want to see my phone calls and my emails together. You can go ahead and just click this nice little drop-down list and filter by activity type. And also, we can now filter by due date, right? So that's a helpful one too. The due date filter is right here. We can sort A to Z, Z to A, or we can even kind of drill our filter down a little bit from there. So you can now filter by due date as well as activity type on the activities. This is available to us now too. Let's say you don't feel like looking at your activities through the Kanban view or even the list view here. You can go to Show As and you can bring in the calendar control. So now I can view my activities on a nice calendar view. Some people, prefer this just because they're used to looking at activities on their Outlook calendar. So if you switch to the calendar view, you can now view your activities on a nice calendar grid. And once again, all I did here was I went to this little drop down, the ellipse over here, I click Show As, and I click Calendar Control. And then I just change this back over to the month view to kind of view my activities on a calendar display here. So those are the features that I wanted to go over real quickly from the 2020 Wave 1 release. And now I'm going to kick it over to Mimi to continue with the features. So Mimi, it's coming over to you.
Thanks, Joe.
Yeah.
All right. So just a couple of comments, a few that are just administrative, and then I had two other features I wanted to point out, and we want to have a few minutes here for questions coming in through the chat. So just a couple of things to be aware of as it relates to the Wave 1 updates and just the changes that Microsoft is making. So if any of the organizations on this call are using the team member license, please be aware that there will be a license enforcement taking place in the Microsoft documentation. It actually describes April 1 as the time frame for that. What that means is that if you're a team member, you'll need to make sure that you're falling in line with the compliance regulations that Microsoft has documented out there for what you can and cannot do. The team member license is still restricted based on security roles using the honor system. But in the future, it has been announced that there will be further restrictions beyond that. So I think Dave had pointed out in his presentation, different apps are accessible through the drop down here within the unified interface. Microsoft is providing team member apps, which, by design are limited to just the entities that team members have access to, with the exception of custom entities. But then it is also relying on the security roles that you have designed, again, to make sure that they're compliant with what Microsoft is suggesting. A little bit confusing there, as Microsoft licensing is sometimes. So further questions about that can be addressed to our account management team, or any of the consultants on the call would be happy to help you to understand that. The other two things that I wanted to point out, centralized admin features and how you get to that, some of the cool things that we talked about today. And then finally, this PDF converter option for the Wave 1 update. So when you're in any of the unified interfaces, depending on your permissions, of course, you may have access to an area here called App Settings. So if I select that, I'm logged in here as an administrator, so I can see these areas. But there is categories for some of the different features that we've talked about here today, and even beyond. The LinkedIn integration, for example, is one thing that we hadn't talked about, but that is managed through this app setting area. But things like the PDF converter, which I will get to here in a second, the business card scanner, which I know Dave walked through, and some other things around auto create for records are managed through this app settings overview area. Specifically for the PDF converter, so instead of having to download a report and save that to your local device and then upload it elsewhere and link it, we do have the option now with the Wave 1 update to convert to PDF. And this is enabled for specific entities. So in this case, I just turned that on for the sales, some of the core entities that we're using. And then let me show you how that is displayed through the interface. So I'll drill into an account here. And the first thing that you'll notice within the form is I have an option. It's actually, I've seen some resolution changes with the go-to here today, but on the drop-down, the three ellipsis over on the right-hand side gives me some choices here to create a report as a PDF or email as a PDF. So if I just choose the create option, it allows me to create a PDF based on the default account summary report. And from here, I have two choices. I can save it to SharePoint, assuming that I have that as an enabled integration within my environment. If I want to just download the PDF, I choose the option there. It exports to PDF, creates that. And now I have a PDF file that I can either email or do something else with that I choose. So that's a pretty cool new feature available within the Wave 1 update. And unlike the unified interface where you have some amount of discretion as to when that's scheduled for your environment, the Wave 1 update is scheduled by Microsoft between April and September. So you'll see that whenever you are part of the active wave being updated, these features will be accessible to you. So that concludes the content for today. We appreciate your attendance through this hour this morning. As far as next steps go, I would, as a reminder, make sure that you're checking on your scheduled transition date for the unified interface, creating a plan around the project to do that transition, and contact Cargus support for any of the needs around that. You can email customercare@cargus.com, or you can contact any of the members of the team on the call here today. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Krauser. Tim, any questions that you see coming through the chat?
Yeah, good. Yes, good morning. Yeah, we've had a couple. So the first question that came through was, how do we make sure that we are running the most current update? Dave, you want to take that one maybe?
With Tim, sure. Just like the most update of the system, you can just go into the settings area and you have to check to make sure that it's actually running the application or the most recent version. So it's kind of a, I don't have it set up right now to unfortunately demo, but we can definitely follow up on that and show you where to do that.
Okay. And another question we have is, let me find it here. Where do we look to learn how to transition from the classic to the new interface? Like where does a customer go to learn, what the process is? I think it's what the question, where do we learn, how do we go about doing that?
Yeah, so this is Mimi. I'll take that one. Microsoft does have a unified interface transition portal that's specific to that scheduling. It is part of our slide deck here, and we can also send it out to make sure that you have access to that link. One other comment related to that, you can only make changes if you are the global admin, or I believe the Dynamics 365 admin also has permissions to make that change. So, a standard sales user would not have access. You'd get an error when you tried to get to the portal. That will make sure that you have access to that link, and that's how you would find out and schedule and approve.
Great. And we can make sure that that you get that, Dana. Any other questions? I know we're running out of time here shortly, but if you have anything else you want to ask, just type it into the chat and we'll take care of it. And of course, if you do have other questions, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say thank you for running through the Q&A and remind everyone that once we do end the webinar here this morning, there is going to be a short survey that prompts. Please fill out that survey. It is just 3 questions long, and there is an opportunity there if you would like more information. Just select yes, and we'll be sure that a member from our team is going to be following up with you as well. So we'll just leave the Q&A here just for another moment in case anyone has additional questions. And if not, we will let you guys get on with the rest of your day. Thanks again, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Okay, looks like we've got the 2 questions that were put in taken care of. So as Harmony said, please take care of the survey when you get it, and hope everybody has a great day.